Have you ever been so close to giving up that you could already taste the relief? One night, I did. I sat in silence, staring at the floor, drained of everything: motivation, energy, even hope. I whispered the words I never thought I'd say: I quit. But just as I started to feel the weight lift off my chest, another voice rose from within. Not a comforting one. Not one of reason. It was louder, sharper, angrier. It screamed, "You're not a quitter. You're not weak. You're just being soft." That wasn't my heart speaking. That was my ego. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. The voice that had driven me to achieve was the same one now keeping me trapped. What followed that night wasn't a breakdown. It was a war. And if you've ever felt like your own mind was working against you, like the very thing that once made you strong is now tearing you apart, this story is for you. Because sometimes, the biggest enemy isn't the world. It's the version of you that refuses to let go. I wasn't always like this. In my early 20s, I was obsessed with becoming somebody. Not just successful, respected, admired. The one people remembered when they left the room. It wasn't about money or fame, not really. It was about proving something. That I mattered. That I was better than the kid they laughed at in high school. Better than the man my father said wouldn't make it. And so, I built myself up, brick by brick, out of long nights, endless hustle, fake smiles, and swallowed pain. People started noticing. They clapped. They followed. They admired. Every win fed my ego like gasoline on fire. And it felt good until it didn't. Because here's the trap nobody tells you about ambition. It starts as a fire that keeps you warm. But left unchecked, it becomes a wildfire that burns everything around you: your peace, your sleep, your relationships, and eventually, you. I didn't see it happening. To the world, I was killing it. But behind closed doors, I was already falling apart. And worst of all, I couldn't admit it. Because to say I was tired meant I was weak. To say I needed rest meant I was losing. And my ego? He wouldn't allow that. The signs were everywhere. I was snapping at people I loved for no reason. Skipping meals. Sleeping less. Smiling only when someone was watching. Work that used to ignite me now drained me. I didn't celebrate wins anymore. I just crossed them off like meaningless chores. And every night, I stared at the ceiling, wondering what it was all for. But I kept going. Because quitting? That wasn't even a thought. Not in my world. In my world, you push. You grind. You never stop. Even when your body begs you to. Even when your soul feels heavy. And then came the day I broke. I remember it vividly. It was raining. My inbox was exploding. A deal I'd worked on for months had just fallen through. And someone I trusted betrayed me. I walked out of my office, sat in my car, and just shut down. No music. No calls. Just silence and windshield wipers. I said it aloud, just 3 words: I am done. And for the first time in years, I felt honest. But then, he spoke again. My ego. Pathetic. After all this? You'd rather cry in your car than rise like you always have? It mocked me like a cruel coach that couldn't accept failure. And I realized, I wasn't just battling exhaustion. I was at war with a version of myself that refused to lose. That night, I stood in front of the mirror. Not for vanity. Not to fix my hair. but to look, really look, at who I had become. And what I saw wasn't a man. It was a statue carved from expectation, performance, and pride. No softness. No joy. Just tension and tired eyes. I whispered to myself again. I quit. And the voice in my head erupted. You quit now, and everything you've built falls apart. You'll be forgotten. You'll prove them right. It was like arguing with a ghost that knew every fear I had. Every insecurity. Every scar. That's when I realized my ego wasn't just arrogant. It was scared. Scared of being ordinary. Scared of being vulnerable. Scared of letting go of the illusion that I always had to be the strong one. And that fear had driven every decision I'd made for years. The mirror didn't just show me my face. It showed me the mask I'd worn for so long. I'd forgotten it wasn't real. In that reflection, I met the real me, tired, cracked, human. And for the first time, I felt compassion. You ever argue with yourself? Not like casual thoughts, but a full-blown internal debate. A courtroom in your mind where both sides have convincing arguments. That was me. One voice, calm, tired, but honest, said, "It's okay to stop. To breathe. To ask for help." The other voice, sharp, proud, relentless, fired back, "You're soft. Weak. If you slow down now, you'll lose everything." It felt like two versions of me were fighting over the steering wheel. And the truth is, both voices were right, in their own twisted way. My ego wasn't evil, it was born from survival. It was the armor I built as a kid who was told he wasn't enough. It protected me, pushed me, helped me rise. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being a shield and became a prison. Every time I wanted to rest, it said, "Work harder." Every time I wanted connection, it said, "Don't show weakness." Every time I wanted to feel, it said, "Feelings are distractions." And so I lived decades of my life as a performer, never a participant. That night, sitting alone, I didn't need motivation. I needed permission. Permission to be human. Permission to put down the sword. Permission to say, I don't have to keep proving myself anymore. In the quiet of that moment, I thought of something I once read from Shakespeare. Our doubts are traitors, and make us lose the good we oft might win by fearing to attempt. But maybe ego is the real traitor. Because it's not doubt that kills dreams. It's the fear of appearing weak. The refusal to look like we've failed, even when continuing is destroying us. Shakespeare's tragic heroes, Hamlet, Macbeth, Othello, they weren't destroyed by outside forces. They were ruined by their inner storms. Their ambition. Their pride. Their unwillingness to yield, even when the ground beneath them was crumbling. Sound familiar? Ego wants control. It wants certainty. It wants the appearance of strength, even if it costs you peace. And in chasing that illusion, we lose the very thing that makes life rich. Connection. Vulnerability. Stillness. Joy. That night, I stopped seeing my ego as a strength, and started seeing it as a ghost. A whisper from my past that haunted my present. And like all ghosts, it didn't need to be fought. It needed to be understood. Then released. Funny thing is, I had what many dream about. The job. The house. The reputation. From the outside, it looked like I'd won. But inside, I was locked in a golden cage. Because no one tells you this, sometimes success becomes a trap. You can't walk away from it because people expect you to keep performing. You feel like if you stop smiling, stop hustling, stop being the strong one, the whole image will collapse, and with it, the identity you've spent years building. That's what ego does. It convinces you that your worth is tied to your output. Not your kindness. Not your presence. Not your peace. Just your productivity. So I kept producing. Kept showing up. Kept bleeding silently behind a smile. Until the day I admitted. I didn't recognize myself anymore. And I asked the most dangerous question of all. What if I'm chasing someone else's version of success? Because if I didn't define it, ego certainly did. I didn't quit that night. But I did something far scarier. I paused. I took a weekend off. Turned off my phone. Told no one where I was going. I just disappeared. And for the first time in years, I let myself sleep without setting an alarm. I walked barefoot in the grass. I sat by a lake and watched the sun rise without wondering how many emails I was missing. I cried. Not because I was sad, but because I remembered what it felt like to be me. Not the achiever. Not the fighter. Not the invincible persona. Just me. It was terrifying. And freeing. And necessary. In that pause, something shifted. The voice of ego didn't disappear, but it softened. And I realized I didn't have to destroy it. I just had to stop letting it drive. Because ego isn't the villain. It's the wounded child screaming for control. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is whisper back, I hear you, but we're safe now. Returning wasn't easy. People asked, you good now? I'd smile and say yes, but the truth was more complicated. I wasn't just good. I was different. I stopped saying yes to every demand. I restructured my schedule. I started therapy. I let go of work that looked good on paper but drained me to the bone. But the biggest shift? I no longer needed to be seen as unbreakable. In meetings, I admitted when I didn't know something. With friends, I shared when I felt lost. At home, I stopped hiding my exhaustion behind sarcasm. And something strange happened. People didn't lose respect for me. They connected more. Because humans don't bond over perfection. We bond over truth. And every time I showed up without the mask, I found something more powerful than admiration. I found authenticity. See, ego isn't just about arrogance. Sometimes it's about fear. The fear of becoming irrelevant. The fear of being forgotten. The fear that if you stop grinding, the world moves on without you. But here's the truth no one tells you. You are allowed to evolve. The version of you that got you here doesn't have to be the version that takes you forward. Yes, your ego may have pushed you through hard times. But evolution requires something else. Surrender. Not surrender as in giving up. Surrender as in letting go of the weight that no longer serves you. I realized that for most of my life, I was building a castle to protect my ego. But all that time, what I really needed was a garden to heal my soul. Growth isn't about louder achievements. It's about deeper roots. And the people who grow the most aren't the ones shouting, I'll never quit. They're the ones whispering, I'm not who I used to be, and that's okay. There's this test I use now. I call it the mirror test. Before I make a big decision, whether to accept a job, post an update, or chase a goal, I look in the mirror and ask, is this coming from love or from lack? If I'm chasing something because I feel incomplete without it, that's ego talking. But if I'm moving towards something because I feel whole and excited within, that's growth. The mirror doesn't lie. It reflects back the real you, not the curated version you post online. And what I've learned is this: when you start acting from truth, not performance, your whole world shifts. Your relationships deepen. Your work becomes more honest. You stop trying to impress and start trying to express. And suddenly, life becomes less about winning and more about feeling alive. So, about that day I almost quit. It didn't end in a dramatic breakdown or a perfect breakthrough. It ended with a decision. Not to quit. Not to grind harder. But to choose differently. To listen more. To slow down. To lead with curiosity instead of control. That day didn't mark the end of my journey, it marked the rebirth of it. The start of a path not paved by ego or fear, but by presence. Somewhere in between giving up and grinding on, there's a third way. A quieter, wiser, more sustainable way. And once you discover it, you'll never want to go back. If you're still here, maybe this story sounds a little too familiar. Maybe you're the one carrying too much. Maybe you're the one who looks like a winner on the outside and feels like a ghost on the inside. So here's my message to you. You don't have to shatter to be strong. You don't have to fight every day just to prove you deserve air. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to ask for help. You're allowed to change your mind. And no, quitting doesn't always mean failure. Sometimes, it's the first honest move you've made in years. But if you're not ready to quit, if something in you still burns, still whispers, not yet, then maybe that's not ego. Maybe that's your true self asking you to rise again. Not out of fear. Not out of pride. But because you finally remembered who you are. If this message hit home, don't just scroll on. Share it. Someone out there might need these words more than you know. Drop a comment. Have you ever had a moment where ego nearly cost you everything? And hey, if you're on your own journey of unlearning, rebuilding, and rising, hit that subscribe button. Because we've got more stories like this, real, raw, and ready to wake something up in you. Until next time, stay human, stay humble, stay loud in your truth.